in the north. They thought they knew all there was to know of war. Until the War of the Rift. While the Southern King hid, warm in his keep, the Darkwings cut their bloody trail from frozen north to winter's edge. Alone, the Warden and his small garrison turned their whiskers to the icy wind. At the end of hope, in a last barrage, they wiped Badkind from the land and memory. With no sign of the Darkwings' return, in time, few believed them little more than a fairy's tale. But at Mount Cauldron, time had been all they needed. An old enemy claws free of their icy tomb and hungers for vengeance. But not all is lost. King Rattus brings north a cause for hope. A bastard prince, placed in the paws of the Warden of the Wastes to raise as his own. A secret of blood never to be told. Now, fate calls for a hero in a murderous screech, and one young rat will answer. Arlo had found the reason his friends had fled. The taunting shrieks revealed that this was Baron Frostavik, son of the Darkwing who took his father, and therefore a perfect target for his revenge. His foe was beaten, but seeing what had been inflicted on Hilda and Krunk, Arlo's need for vengeance was only growing. Arlo found the ranger was already locked in battle with the Slither Scale. He would not survive long fighting alone. The young ranger was a fierce fighter, but no match for the Slither Scale. He barely thanked Arlo for helping him in this fight before he took off, seeking another. Arlo could not leave him to fight alone. There was no stopping him until the Slither Scale was defeated. The Slither Scale was defeated at last. The young ranger took no spoils, and with only a brief hoot of thanks, he was gone. Arlo hoped the ranger's thirst for revenge was finally sated. Arlo braced for an onslaught of tiny, deadly feet, but the second nest was empty. As he started to destroy the nest, he felt the fur on the back of his neck stand on end. understood now how one beast could feel like an army. He wondered if he would get a bonus for felling this giant as well. More bottles lay outside the forge, which was otherwise as quiet as every other dead thing that haunted this place. The pile of bottles was large, even for one who drinks like a merman, and it seemed to be breathing. Arlo was amazed the merman could swing his hammer, let alone see who he was hitting. A couple of thumps on the head soon brought him to his senses. Something else came his way. Tumbling down the temple stair, Arlo was met with another horror. The head of the smith. It was Arlo now who took up the battle cry. Arlo tried not to think of how many friends, old and new, lay dead. He still had more to do. Rita and Ruby were free, but without their father, there was little for them here. Arlo offered them a new home at Winter's Edge, and a forge to continue in their father's footsteps. The mermaids were grateful, and said they would find their way to the keep once they had laid Ron to rest. Was thick and tough, but their blades soon cut them to ribbons. Short Tongue sent the terrified frog toward Bogmire Forge. another villager freed. They too headed for Bogmire, and Arlo wondered how many more frogs it could take. A dank and unsettling place. It had to be the Queen's lair. Arlo wondered what his father would say if he could see him risking his life for frogs. The Tailspinner Queen was dead, and the frogs were soon at work rebuilding the village. The Warden was sure mammalian-amphibian relations would be forever changed. Backstabber lay defeated, and Arlo paid his respects to the beaver, who leapt up at Arlo's paw. Playing dead had spared his life. A chance to work and live at Winter's Edge brought a sparkle to Billy Beaver's eye. He could not wait to get his teeth into the stone of the mighty keep. Arlo hoped he did not mean it literally. As they came to the top of the ruins, they saw Little John. His smile at the sight of his father was the last he ever made. In a flash of bad teeth, his young life was ended. Robin's rage was terrible. He charged at the Darkwing, unleashing a hail of arrows. Together, they defeated the beast in a fury that sent all other bats from the ruin in terror. Robin was bereft. It was meant to be a simple hunt. He could not understand these flying abominations. Arlo offered what solace he could. Tuck was at Winter's Edge, where Robin could take some rest. The villagers were safe for now. Arlo asked if they would help at the farm. The bug milk needed to flow again. The Night Eyes circled the shrine. As Arlo looked closer, he saw Lorenzo, blood pouring from his arm. This strange cult of owls were no healers. With the final cultist defeated, the elder drew something from his cloak. Lorenzo's arm. He swallowed it whole. Arlo soon wished that had been the worst of it. Was dead, and Arlo woke Lorenzo, who was as afraid as he was pained. Arlo sent the scared badger home where his brother was waiting to help him. Short Tongue and Arlo returned the insult, and with more than words. The blacksmith was glad to head to Bogmire and safety. All should have been silent in the blacksmith's wake, but Arlo was suddenly aware of a squelching of mud around them. The stealth claw was here. They had won this round, but they could not leave it at that. Frog and Rat agreed to hunt the stealth claw to its lair. afar, the villagers seemed lifeless, lost in battle or to the cold. But up close, the truth was revealed. They were training dummies. It was a trap. The assassin was vicious, but Frog and Rat held their ground. Injured, the attacker fled, but Short Tongue was not about to let him escape. The pair found him licking his wounds at a makeshift camp. The assassin seemed to forget his pain as he took up his weapon. With the assassin defeated, Arlo breathed a squeak of relief. But Short Tongue was not done. He needed to know who had sent them. The warlord sat surrounded by enslaved frogs and laughed at the pair's demands for their freedom. He had a surprise for his guests. The stench of the dungeon hit them as hard as its floor, a floor that started to shake, and from the shadows emerged the largest toad core that Arlo had ever seen. Rat and Frog slayed the beast, its bloated corpse sinking slowly into the mud. Arlo felt a pang of regret. It had been a slave as much as the others. Glubba's tyranny had ended. Short Tongue offered the frogs a home at Bogmire Forge. Together, he and Arlo had freed the rift as well as the frogs. Perhaps this would be an era of peace for both. It was eerily quiet at the ruins. Tuck had everything ready for the trap. It only needed Arlo to toss the blood fruit into the cooking pot. The stench would be sure to attract the beast. They only needed to wait. A high-pitched shriek pierced through Arlo's dreams, and soon the flapping of wings was upon them. Tuck asked if Arlo could carve its beak from the beast's remains, the perfect centerpiece for his new shop. The young rat could barely contain his excitement and ran off, keen to find the builder at Winter's Edge, now able to build the shop of his dreams. The camp leader raised his war horn. Its unearthly screech seemed to stir the very air into fury. This was not the wind, but the beating of leathery wings. The camp leader was defeated, but they had to warn the rabbits. Darkwings were on their way. Kazakh had sent one of his strongest generals, Necromancer Gouraz. His defeat would rob the bats of a great weapon. Warren was safe in Rabbit Paws once more. Gray Ears swore that if the Warden of the Wastes ever called for help, the rabbits would answer. Doug was no match for Arlo's superior skill. Reggie could already see this would be a tournament that they would squeak of through the ages. Was a veteran too, used to fighting monsters and darkwings with ice under paw. Dennis did not compare. Now the crowd cheered for him. In stature and skill, there was not a whisker between them. They shook paws in truce. No rat could doubt Arlo's worth now. Reggie said to meet him by the docks. Together, they would wipe out the Dark Wings once and for all. Together, they would attack Mount Cauldron. The burial chamber revealed both tales were true. A treasure hoard, and guarding it was the ancient Draugr Harat Bluefang. fearsome warrior, now laid to rest. More importantly, Arlo had found his treasure. They moved in step, a flawless dance of blood and vengeance. Neither knew that their own blood united them, but perhaps, just then, they felt it. Together, Arlo and Erica fought the Darkwing Smith. The fiery heat at the heart of the mountain burned hotter than any forge. They entered the huge throne room. They finally set eyes on the foul, laughing figure of Count Kazak, sat on his icy throne. Bertel kneeled exhausted before him. This pained the Warden more than he could explain. beast fell, but there was no time to rest. Leaving Robin to tend to Bertle, Arlo headed to the summit to find Reggie. The icy wind bit at his fur as he emerged on the peak. He saw, silhouetted in the mist, Count Kazak, and in his claws he held King Reggie, dangling over the edge. Corrupted body fell heavy on the ground. Arlo rushed to the edge, calling for the king, but the only answer in the mist was the icy wind. The war was won, but Arlo could not feel the victory. He barely noticed his friends join him. The Fellowship bowed their heads in honor of their brave king. The tale of this war would be as much of loss as of winning. They returned to the Crimson Keep in near silence, each with their thoughts. There would be no victory parades. Arlo heard a commotion ahead. In the throne room were raised voices. Bertle stood in front of Reggie's throne, holding the crown, asking who should now carry this burden. Dennis barged forward to claim it. He was brother of the king. It was his by birth. Robin stepped forward and proclaimed that Arlo was rightfully king. Without him, there would be no kingdom to rule. He had proved himself on the peak. He was not alone. Leaders of the clans stepped forward and echoed their favor of the Warden. Arlo objected. He had no claim here. Bertle slammed his staff into the floor to silence the rising voices. He had a secret to tell. Arlo's father was King Rattus, Bertel himself had delivered him as a child to the Warden. He had a claim, if he was willing to take it. Arlo felt the truth of it, and the paw of destiny seemed to push him forward to take his place upon the throne. Bertel placed the crown upon his head. The weight of rule was his now. Dennis had been forgotten in the shouts of joy from the clans. He raised his blade and swore vengeance. It was his birthright, and he would reclaim it from this usurper. Arlo set aside the Warden and became the king. A new dawn broke over the land, bright and clear. The king sensed it would not last. The promise of his half-brother would surely mean war would come again. But that, as they say, is a tale for another time.